Join us on this extraordinary voyage that crosses a wild country created by great forces of nature. On a railway line that took decades to build and only seconds to crush. This coast-to-coast journey will pass through magnificent mountains, a stunning sacred place that has been inspiring the Maori for centuries.
The beauty of it is, in a million years, this will still be here.
A train line that has had to conquer deep gorges on its way to Christchurch that sits on a deadly fault.
The stress to push that out is just phenomenal.
We'll meet the people who live and work along this very special train line. This is no ordinary railway journey. This is one of the most scenic railway journeys in the world, New Zealand. South Island, New Zealand. A dynamic land created by the collision of two great continents. A landscape still growing and on the move. Our journey begins on the west coast at Greymouth, a town with a thriving railway and a station steeped in nostalgia. This is the starting point for our train, the Tranzalpine.
We're off to Christchurch, we hope. We hope to. Yeah. I'm an onboard service manager, so my job is to look after the crew, ensure the smooth service of the train and the customer service. Everyone gets looked after. We'll close the doors around 2 o'clock. I better go and get my paperwork.
To cross South Island from Greymouth to Christchurch will take 4.5 hours. From the lush lowlands, we head into the southern Alps, through Otira Tunnel to our route's highest station at Arthur's Pass. Then we enter an unspoilt wilderness of big rivers before we head to the flat plains of Canterbury. After 139 miles, we'll arrive at our destination and the Pacific Ocean. The train leaves Greymouth carrying up to 400 passengers. It attracts a wide range of day trippers, train buffs, and some just here to celebrate.
I wanted to make it special. New Zealand is such a special place.
We've been living in South Island for 6-7 years. We've been planning every year, but this year, our birthday, nothing could be better.
The start of our voyage is through lush lowlands and thick forests as it follows the Grey River. This dramatic landscape was sacred to the Maori, a land they knew for hundreds of years before any Europeans arrived with their industries.
We're passing the Brunner mine very shortly.
This area is where the railway line first started. This was one of the 130 coal mines in the area. It was the need to transport the coal that ignited the need for a railway, as David explains.
The railway was built to access the resources of the west coast coming from the Greymouth side, and coal and gold were, from a European perspective, the keys to driving that west coast economy, and timber was not far behind.
Shipping it out of Greymouth was too treacherous, but on the east coast near Christchurch, the harbour was deep enough.
The railway was extended through. Once it was completed, it became quite possible to take the coal to Littleton, and from Littleton it could be shipped in larger vessels overseas.
The Europeans began building the railway to connect the two coasts. But with no local knowledge, they couldn't find a low, safe route for a rail line. They turned to the Maori people, who knew this land for centuries as they scoured it for the sacred stone, jade.
My people, where I come from, we're from the forests, so I can relate to all this environment that we're currently going through. It makes you so close and part of the environment. It's very special, very special. We will always relate to nature.
Not only did they understand their natural surroundings, they created paths through the mountains.
A lot of the guides were Maori because they knew the land.
They were hunting for jade, known in Maori as ponamu. Bevan's ancestors went to great lengths to find it.
They did a lot of walking, a lot of, they didn't have Nikes, they just had harakeke moccasins, flax shoes or bare feet, and hard work, and finding food on the way. All for the stone, all for the stone. The Maori trails run back through the hills that the Tranzalpine follow, and you can see how rugged it is. And it's ponamu they used to use for their tools and artefacts, because we were Stone Age people, pre-European, of course. So whoever controlled the ponamu was like the king who held the crown, he was the man.
Jade is passed down through the generations as it's highly valued for tools, and for the Maori, it carries spiritual meaning.
They didn't throw it in the ground and bury it and then forget about it. No, they came back up. Mana is your inner strength and your goals, like your passion, and you don't get given mana, you earn it, and you learn it. This one just glows. You could make a tiki out of it. But that's a good find. It's not one to be sneezed at.
Well respected in the community, Bevan is a natural guardian of the stone.
This is the workshop. This is where it all happens. Back in the day, and pre-European, it was probably the woman folk that did most of the carving. This is a taniwha, so it's like a water serpent. Say, like the kayakers, they might wear taniwha to protect them because they're in the water, as a protector. The beauty of it is, to me, is it's, in a million years, this will still be here. And so will this. And so will this. And so will everything I've made out of this stone will still be here. It doesn't go rotten. So it's eternal,
The Maori had a huge impact on the history of the railway, and they continue to work together. On board today, Jo and her team are always busy and always know where they are.
We are not far from Moana. We're picking up 8 people at Moana. It's a very popular place to stop. On my Fitbit, in the middle of summer, I had to get up to 22,000 steps just on the train.
So far I've done 4.62 kilometres, and that's 14,898 steps.
Yeah, so we do a lot of steps on the train.
Just on cue, we pass tranquil Moana railway station on the shores of Lake Brunner. We're currently only travelling at 300 feet above sea level, but this is about to change. The train is about to cross one of the world's biggest and most dynamic features, the Alpine Fault. It's so big, you can see it from space. For 300 miles, it runs down South Island.
We're crossing the Alpine Fault Zone at the present time. We have a broad zone, probably 500 metres or so wide. It's a very active, dynamic landscape.
In the last 12 million years, the fault has pushed up the Southern Alps by over 12 miles. Only the fast pace of erosion has kept these magnificent mountains under 13,000 feet.
All of this melds together And it's really, I think, hugely impressive.
As the train heads out of the plains, the journey enters a new landscape, the Southern Alps. Unable to go over them, the engineers had to tunnel.
You've got gas from explosives, you've got rockfall, so all of that combines to make it very, very difficult.
Our train left Greymouth 2 hours ago and now climbs steadily to over 1,200 feet as it enters Otira Valley.
We're nearly at Kelly's Creek. Once we cross Kelly's Creek, we'll be into Otira. Population about 40 people. So what we do there is we put the bank engines on the back to prepare for our trip through the rail tunnel.
To live here, you have to be hardy. In winter, the sun only penetrates this steep-sided valley for a few hours a day. The train needs extra horsepower to cope with the next part of the railway. It was the last section of the Midland Line to be built and probably the hardest. The Otira Tunnel. It was started in 1907. With the simplest of tools, the workers had to dig 5 miles through the mountain.
100 years ago, the conditions were not quite so good. You've got ventilation issues, you've got gas from explosives, and it'll be wet. You've got rockfall coming off the side walls and the crown of the tunnel, the top of the tunnel. So all of that combines to make it very, very difficult.
The tunnel rises an incredible 820 feet inside the Alps.
When the western and the eastern halves of the tunnel, the Otira tunnel, met, there was about 2 centimetres of displacement. So it was really, really good engineering, and the surveying was clearly of a high quality. And you need that when you're building tunnels.
When it finally opened in 1923, after 16 harsh years, it was the 7th longest tunnel in the world. The train is now in Arthur's Pass National Park. An area that has snow and ice cover even in midsummer with over 3,000 glaciers. And it has the highest railway station on our route.
We're at Alpine Pass, right in the centre of the journey. Oh, there's a gentleman I just saw down there, and he's never seen snow before, and it was beautiful the way he was just putting his fingers in the snow and just trying to feel what it feels like. Incredible. That's what's the best thing about these passengers, is that they've got no idea until they get here just how beautiful it is.
The village, which is in the middle of the national park, is the only place in New Zealand that has an apostrophe in its name. Local and park ranger Pete is pretty proud of it.
A few years ago, when my kids were a bit younger, we used to come out on midnight missions around the village with a black marker pen and put in apostrophes and all the some signs. But now I just do it during the day. I'm not quite so scared anymore. But my kids used to love it. We get dressed up in beanies and hoods and everything, so no one would recognise us, and we come out at midnight. I'll probably come along here with some paint one night and flick the apostrophe in properly.
Even if it's a bit cloak and dagger at times, there's a great community spirit.
With the 30 people that live in the village, most of us get on really well together. Like last night, for example, we had the local book club, which is run every month. There's anything from 6 to 13, 14 people will turn up to that, which, you know, that doesn't sound like a huge number, but it's 13 or 14 is nearly half of the population of the village.
In fact, the community do tend to all pitch in.
And here we've got the fire station. Of the 30 locals, 12 of them are on the fire crew, all wearing different hats all the time, as we always do. This is our little post office. So all the post gets delivered there. We've all got our own individual post boxes and a book fridge next to it as well. Oh, look at that, there's quite a few in there. Illustrated London News, there you go. How about that, from May 1978. We try and, all the locals try and pick up rubbish as we go around the village. It tends to be a common thing.
Even in idyllic places, you can have the odd problem resident. At Arthur's Pass, the local hooligans are above the law. They even have special protected status. These vandals are the world's only alpine parrot, the kia.
The local mountain parrots, they learned how to lift them up. They'll sort of jiggle it up and then empty all the rubbish out and throw it all around and play with it. And so with that little bit of a weight on there, it just makes it much harder for them to... What we used to do was put a big rock on the top of each one. But then the kia actually learned how to push the rocks off as well.
Rubbish tipping, stealing and rubber ripping have been on the increase. Even though the parrot population has been in rapid decline.
The kia have got bands on their legs. The bulk of them are named as well. And there's a really good website now, Kia database, that you can record sightings of them. And in the year or so that that database has been running, there's been 3,500 sightings logged already. So here we go. This one's called Cam, and he's about a 2 or 3 year old male, a cheeky young kia, hanging out in a group of at least 7 other cheeky kia in Arthur's Pass village.
I've been here and know you can see that bird's going to take something and they'll take a sandwich out of somebody's hand.
Too clever for their own good.
They are.
Thanks to the efforts of the National Park and their growing fan club, these lovable rogues are no longer endangered. The community wouldn't have it any other way. It's time to leave Arthur's Pass with 94 miles still to travel. The railway journey has crossed the Great Southern Alps and is about to enter an extraordinary new region. Beeley and the Waimakariri River, the river of cold rushing water in Maori. This valley was carved out by glaciers 27,000 years ago. Now this huge braided river system continues to erode, creating this breathtaking landscape.
This is incredible. I love it. You travel around the world, you go to all the different places around the world, and here at my back door is all this beautiful scenery, and thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it.
The landscape here, east of the Great Divide, is dramatically different to the lush green west. We're now in the rain shadow of the mountains, a remote area that few people live in. "16 miles southeast of Arthur's Pass is the tiny station of Cass and its one permanent resident, Barry, a retired railway engineer.
Well, there we are. We've just come through Cass, and the gentleman we may have just caught standing there was Barry, and he is a legend. Everyone knows Barry.
I've been living in Cass for 32 years, coming up 32 years, and I'm the sole occupant of Cass. It's a good place to live, especially on a day like today. It's nice and warm and a bit of snow on the hills. I've worked on the railway all my life. The train does provide a lifeline to, like here at Arthur's Pass when the road's closed. There's always somebody in here. There wouldn't be a day go by if there's not a car come into the station, look at the station and come and say g'day.
Today is no exception.
I think I found my spot. I love the contrast between the structure of the building and the curves of the landscape. It's a perfect day to create a painting.
This tiny century-old station may look nondescript, just like many modest railway buildings. But this one is iconic in New Zealand culture. It was made famous by their most influential painter, Rita Angus. It attracts people from around the world, like Livia, originally from Brazil, now an artist in Christchurch.
I love the way she used color. It's quite emotional. We can definitely tell how much joy she had painting this year.
In May 1936, Rita, a then unknown artist, came to Cass to paint with a couple of friends for 10 days. The picture she painted is now world famous.
The vastness of the landscape is the same. It's unchangeable. It's well preserved since then. I like how the figure looks so small against all this vastness of the background. And it shows how isolated the area is. It shows how isolated we are in New Zealand from the rest of the world.
Rita's painting caught a moment in time over 80 years ago. But the scenery remains just as inspiring as ever. The Tranzalpine is now 3 hours and 15 minutes into its journey through many diverse landscapes, and ahead is no exception. The train is about to descend into a ravine so steep that the engineers called it the Fearful Gorge. Our train continues its great voyage across South Island. After the wide expanse at Cass, it faces another dramatic change. A steep 8-mile gorge. The only way to overcome such challenging terrain was to tunnel 15 times and crisscross the river with 4 giant viaducts. It was one of the most difficult sections of the line to build.
Staircase Viaduct is a major curved structure, and it takes, as I said, the rail over Staircase Creek, and that has its pier foundations, and that really is, I would suggest, the most spectacular of the 4 viaducts we have.
With no roads, they could only bring their equipment by rail and then pull it across the gully with metal ropes. The build took 2 long years, and it was so remote the workers brought their families to live there during this time.
This is the tallest of the viaducts through here, and it's the only one that can be seen from the river. The rest of them are slightly further back.
Ed Wickham has worked on this river for over 25 years and knows just how difficult it was to build this rail line.
72 metres from the shingle up to where the rails are. Good British engineering. And British steel, I suppose. The thing I love about this particular location is that it's an isolated place. There are no roads around here. So the only way to see this beautiful piece of New Zealand is by seeing it from the window of the train or experiencing it on the water by coming by jet boat.
Since there are no highways, Ed has made his living showing people the gorge by boat.
We're going to head up to a beautiful patch where there's a hut called Walker's Hut. welcome to 1960. This is a pure piece of Kiwiana.
Now these huts are bases for people who enjoy fishing and walking.
We maintain it, and it's open for anyone to use at any time, never locked. And people can use it in an emergency if they were kayaking on the river, or if they had a boat that broke down, they could come and stay here.
There's even provisions if it was a really desperate emergency.
How long do cans of food last? Decades, don't they? These ones do anyway. They've been there since the 70s, I think, but we won't worry about those. We've got Marmite. Everyone likes Marmite, except the people who don't. Black beans and chili sauce. I think this is a recent addition. This has probably only been here 5 years. And we have vintage baked beans. But anyway, the thought's there, and it's the thought that counts.
The train descends 1,200 feet down the fearful gorge. Its drop in altitude is tough on the train, so it needs regular care.
There is quite a bit involved in looking after the carriages. They do work through the night to make sure that the consist is ready for the next day. Everything's drained, clean, tidy. It's a 24-hour operation.
All clear, I-04.
At Waltham Yard, team leader Devon guides the train every night to this special siding.
Yep, I-04, keep it coming. We have got about 3 length. When I started, I just used to see the trains go past. Oh, yeah, there's a passenger train, but how it's maintained and how it's kept, magic.
It takes a team of around 11 people to nightly check and maintain the train.
The guy's job is to inspect the train. He will be going from the front of the van, underneath, checking all bogies, all draw gear, all running gear, just to make sure everything's perfect. He'll check everything one way, and then coming back, he'll make sure he's done it the second time to sign it off.
This big American-built DXC diesel locomotive has up to 3,300 horsepower. Once the train is refueled, the checks continue through the night.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
So he's good. Yep, I can hear you loud and clear, Todd. Everybody on the team here plays their part, and then the train becomes safe and ready for morning.
We're now on the fertile expanse of the Canterbury Plains, the largest area of flat land in New Zealand, covering 3,000 square miles. As our train heads to the coast, so does the Waimakariri River.
It's 150 kilometres long. It's from a glacial melt, so it's quite unique. And we do get lots of colours in it from different season to season. In the spring, it can turn beautiful jade colours.
Once again, it is a huge braided river system that carries 3 million tonnes of gravel to the sea every year. The most popular way to travel across the island in the 1920s was by steam locomotives. By the 60s, they were superseded by diesel trains. But not everyone has given up on steamies. 25-year-old inventor Sam is building his dream.
This is covered up because it's all secret parts. The boiler's based on some new technology that we've been developing. It's important that we keep this to ourselves to get the foot in the door, and hopefully one day this will all be revealed.
He hopes it will be a new kind of green steam train.
We've maintained the shape of a conventional locomotive boiler because that's the best way to build it.
But the big difference with Sam's new boiler design is that it will reduce pollution, be cheap to run and quick to start.
It's been a challenge, most exciting challenge. It took about a year to build this from the ground up, and there were lots of little things to be worked out along the way. The fireman is firing wood into the firebox to maintain a steady fire, keep the pressure up, and balance that with feeding water into the boiler to maintain a steady output of steam for the driver to use in pulling the train.
Using wood, a sustainable fuel, Sam believes his engine could be a viable option as a commuter train into Christchurch. To fully appreciate the power and joy of steam, Sam also works with the Canterbury Steam Preservation Society. These local train enthusiasts have rescued and restored several original locomotives.
So that was then when my passion for the environment and for steam came together, and what I've learned here has been instrumental to that development. To change the world is a massive task, and it's not so much about what I do, but who I can inspire and the people I can pass these ideas on to in the future. That will be key.
Ladies and gentlemen, just another 5 minutes before we arrive into Springfield.
She's got a lovely voice, Desi, hasn't she?
Oh, thanks, Jojo. When we get to Springfield, we're going to meet Heather, and Heather supplies us with all our cheese boards on board. So she supplies not only the South Island, the Tranzalpine, also the Coastal Pacific and the Northern Explorer in the North Island.
In 1880, Springfield's first station was built to coincide with the start of the Midland Line. Now, the place is full of nostalgia rather than passengers, as Heather, the cafe owner, explains.
In those days, the commuter trains were going through to the coast, and a sea of people would come in here, and there'd be ladies lined up against a great long bench that ran almost the full length of the cafe. Teapots, coffee pots, everything was at the ready. Cups and saucers, and they'd be practically filled with beverages before the people got off. And there'd be this huge clamour of people just racing in here to get their drinks and their food and to get back on in time. And it was all over, you know, just like that.
It might not be brimming with people, but it still plays an important part in the smooth running of the Transalpine.
Today we've got a small order for 20 cheese platters to go on the train, which is due in at 5:20. These are the cheese platters. These are the beautiful Barrows Bay cheeses that we put through in the cheese boards, and these go on board for passengers to eat. I love trains. I didn't know the first thing about trains till I came here. All of a sudden, all these train people come out of the woodwork.
It was a stroke of luck that brought Heather here.
We're walking through Darfield one morning when my boys were quite a bit younger, and my eldest son spotted a little card in the window of the real estate agent in Darfield. They said, "Oh, look, Mum, there's a cafe. We should buy that. It's in Springfield." And we did. We just bought the business, and we never looked back. And really enjoy it, really love it. The folk that we work with in Kiwi Rail and Christchurch are just amazing. And they've got to know the drivers and all the different staff. It's brilliant. The bells are going, there she comes. Sounds like it's going to stop.
See what
coach door is going to open. Hi! How are you? Good, how are you? We haven't seen you for ages. You too. Thanks so much. Cheese platters, you're very welcome. Isn't it beautiful on this side?
It's gorgeous. What's it doing over there?
Freezing cold. Freezing cold and rain on the west coast.
Oh,
yeah. Thanks, Heather. Good to see you. And then we always see how many waves we can get out of the passengers. And that's Heather. She's lovely. And here's our cheese boards.
We're now only 40 miles from Christchurch, the island's capital, perched by a volcano and the vast Pacific Ocean. It might appear calm on the surface, but what lies beneath this land is a very different matter. The train is just 45 minutes from Christchurch, and we are about to enter Darfield. Despite the peaceful setting, it is one of the most dynamic places on Earth.
We're going to use flour as the Earth's crust. We could trace the path across the Canterbury Plains down into Christchurch. Passengers get off here, and the freight can then also go out of Littleton Harbour and out to the rest of the world.
Ben, a volcanologist, and his son Noah have a unique way of explaining the hidden dynamics below the railway line.
We'll try and get it nice and flat. Nice work. So in New Zealand, the two tectonic plates are sliding past each other. It's that sliding past that causes the mountains to grow. And then this, you can imagine, is just like the Alps. And you can see cracks moving across the Canterbury Plains.
I noticed that the land was getting smaller while the mountains were getting bigger.
You're right, as the mountains grow, the land is slightly compressed as it folds and bends.
As the Alpine fault continues to squeeze the island, the cracks even far from the fault forcefully move, causing earthquakes. At 4:35 on the 4th of September 2010, a massive earthquake hit South Island. The magnitude of these shockwaves reached a terrifying 7.1 on the Richter scale, directly along the Tranzalpine route.
Just that bend there. Look at that.
Zach was working that day when he came across the track, bent as if it was just rubber.
There's a bit of power in that, eh? That's nature there. When I first arrived out there, I just shook my head. First two things, it's our heaviest rail. It was supported by our heaviest type of sleeper. Had good track formation around the side, and it just, you know, to do something like that's just pretty amazing. The local engineer driver, he parked his train on the west side. His story was that he'd coming down and he could feel the train bouncing, moving, and he thought he was going to come off, and it was wiggling like that. He was driving when it actually happened. You know, that's a heck of a force in there. The stress to push that out is just phenomenal. And I realised I needed probably 1, 2, 3, 4 pairs of rails, so I'd already arranged for somebody in town to go and pick up our some 50 kg rail for us to bring out. In that photo you see me, I'm just doing the cuts.
It was only 6 months later that another earthquake hit. This time, it was deadly. The field teams were again out in force.
I'm pretty chuffed with our track guys because when that happened, everybody got their home life right, and then they knew they had to be back. You know, they just fronted up the next day. I think that's where they glow their brightest, when they've got disasters like this.
The train has crossed the country in nearly 4.5 hours.
Arrival into Christchurch station, approximately 10 minutes.
It's gone a long way, and so have the crew.
There we go, 18,892 steps for one day at work. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's a bit of work, yeah.
At 6:30, the Tranzalpine pulls into Christchurch station. Our journey's end.
They all smiling, they all look happy. Thank you.
Give these guys a hand. We can take the train earlier than... I mean, even though it's not our job to unload, it's just a team thing, it's a communal thing. Everybody chips in.
Above the city on Littleton Volcano, Ben reflects on why the raw elements and the dynamic earth are so special to the city and our train.
Here we are at the end of the Tranzalpine. As it turns out, there is a very real hazard, and the city has experienced more than 10,000 earthquakes in the last 7 years that I've been here. Having gone through the earthquakes myself, you know, the community was incredible because it really banded together to get through these, you know, really hard times. But Christchurch is a wonderful place to live because of all these surroundings, right? Because of the ocean, because of the mountains, because of this volcano and the spectacular landscape it creates. It's definitely worth the risk to live here. Yeah, it's a wonderful place to be.
Our train has travelled across a whole country and experienced diverse changes of landscape and weather. This route that tested the engineers climbs the great Southern Alps, is an inspiration to artists and train lovers. The Tranzalpine is one of the great train journeys of New Zealand and the world.